Welcome to Learn with Mr. Lewis. On this episode, we talk about how a young George Washington accidentally started a world war. All right, let's get some background. Washington was born in 1732, and when he's 11 years old, his father dies. And this messes up a lot of his plans for the future. He moves in with his half brother, Lawrence, but then Lawrence dies when Washington's just 20 years old. That's in 1752. And this really shapes Washington's outlook on the future. Now, this will eventually lead to him inheriting Mount Vernon, which is a big plus, but at the same time, he's not able to get an education like he hopes. And so he decides that the military is the way to go for him to make a name for himself. Now, he's part of the Virginia militia, and the Governor Dinwiddie in Williamsburg, Virginia, sends Washington on a mission into the Ohio country. The Ohio country is a very disputed area. It's this area between British-controlled coastal areas in North America, that's everything east of the Appalachians, versus the French-controlled area, which is north of the Great Lakes. And this map, I think, shows it a little wrong because it makes it look like the two sides are possessing areas right up to a border, and that's not really the case. This map gives a better sense of it. There's this empty area in between, and that area is mostly under control of Native Americans, the Iroquois League, in fact. So anyway, Washington is sent into this area to his responsibility from Lieutenant Governor Dinwiddie is to let the French know that they need to stay out of the Ohio country, that the British want to take possession of that. So he goes in there, and he actually goes all the way to Fort Le Boeuf in what is now western Pennsylvania, and he meets with the French commander, Saint-Pierre, there, and he tells him, hey, I'm here, I've been sent, I'm on a diplomatic mission, and we're saying that you need to get out of here. And Saint-Pierre is like, I don't think that's going to happen. At the same time, Washington makes some very detailed maps of this journey. He also keeps a journal that is very highly thought of. In fact, it's published by Lieutenant Governor Dinwiddie, and it's also sent back to King George II in England, a copy of it. So Washington is on the road to accomplishing his goal, which is he wants to become a commissioned British officer. And this start in the Virginia militia has been very strong. That brings us to another man who's in this Ohio country. His name is Tanacharison, better known as the Half King. And he's a man that has limited authority within the Iroquois League. He's a Mingo Indian, and he leads a group of Mingo, and he decides to make a power play at this point. And he picks sides in what had previously been neutral for the Iroquois League. That is, he chooses the British side. And in fact, he gives the British the right to move into his territory, essentially, and to build a fort. And this fort is built at the forks of the Ohio. This is where the Allegheny River and the Monongahela River meet and become the Ohio River. And this fort is to be named Fort Duquesne. Now, where is Fort Duquesne located today? Still a strategic spot. It's the city of Pittsburgh, and you can see it here in this picture, and you can see it circled down there at the bottom where the location of Fort Duquesne once was. Okay, so let's get back to the Ohio country. Washington, this is the winter of 1753-54, goes on that mission to Fort Le Boeuf. He's making a name for himself at 21 years old. He comes back, and the lieutenant governor sends him on another mission into the Ohio country. This time he's commanding 40 men. He's 22 years old. It's 1754. And as he makes his way into the Ohio country, he bumps into the Half King, Tanacharison. And Tanacharison informs him, hey, you know those guys that were building that fort at the forks of the Ohio? The French have come in and taken it over. Well, this is a problem for Washington because part of his mission was to go in there and protect those that were building the fort. And so now his thought is, well, maybe I can go and take that fort back. I don't know. Washington's in over his head. He doesn't really have a lot of military experience. In fact, he doesn't really have any military experience. And here he is venturing into this Ohio country with this small unit at his command. Well, he comes to a place that is today known as Jumonville Glen, and it looks pretty much the same today as it did back then. It's in western Pennsylvania, south of Pittsburgh, not too far from the borders of West Virginia and Maryland. And there at Jumonville Glen, his men come across about 35 French soldiers under the command of a man by the name of Joseph Coulon de Villiers de Jumonville, Ensign Jumonville. And this French commander has this small force of 35. Washington's got about 40, but he's also got about a dozen of these Mingo warriors who are highly skilled and quite intimidating. Anyway, what Washington doesn't know is that Ensign Jumonville is on a diplomatic mission, not unlike the one he was on the previous year when he ventured into the Ohio country and was treated very well by the French. Well, Washington isn't going to exactly afford Jumonville the same situation. In fact, he doesn't even bother to find out why Jumonville is there. He starts the attack, and this is Washington's very first battle that he was ever involved in. And they assault the French, and it's only a 15-minute battle. Washington loves it, though. He, in fact, says, "I heard the bullets whistle, and believe me, there is something charming in the sound." So he loves the battle, and he loves that he comes out on the winning side, but it's then he realizes that maybe he's stepped a little too far, because one of the other officers, the French officers, informs him, "Hey, you know what? We're on a diplomatic mission. We've got a letter here from our commander." And Washington's like, "Oh." And not only that, Ensign Jumonville is wounded. And so Washington is responsible to take care of them, to ensure their safety. And that's where everything goes haywire, because the Half King steps in at this point and just absolutely clubs Ensign Jumonville in the head, and he kills him. Well, looks really bad for Washington, because he's going to be blamed for this. In fact, the French refer to him as having carried out an assassination on Ensign Jumonville. And to make things worse, the French commander in the area is the half-brother of Ensign Jumonville. He's not likely to forget this anytime soon. And so Washington was hoping to make a name for himself in the Ohio country, and he kind of does at this point, and it's not the name he's trying to make for himself. Well, how does this lead to a world war? Well, this is the event that triggers the French and Indian War in 1754. Both sides, France and Britain, are going to send massive armies to North America that are going to be battling over the course of the next several years. In fact, this war becomes known as the 7 Years' War. It becomes a world war between France and Britain and all of their allies. It's fought on 3 separate continents. It's fought on 2 oceans. And of course, Britain's going to come out the victor in this war in 1763. And it's because of that that Britain gains control of all of North America, essentially east of the Mississippi River. Canada is now fully in British control. But it costs a lot of money. And so the new king, the grandson of King George II, who dies during the war, his grandson, King George III, and of course, Parliament, they raise taxes on the colonies. They start levying taxes on them. And this, of course, is going to lead directly to the American Revolution, this trying to pay for the French and Indian War that George Washington accidentally started. And the irony there, of course, is that George Washington never gets that commission as a British officer. He never gets his dream in life. And that's lucky for all of us who live in the United States of America today, because, of course, it's Washington that's going to lead the colonials to victory over the British. And what he learns in this war is what is so important. Yes, he makes mistakes, but he learns from those mistakes, and he learns how to fight the British. And it's going to make a big difference in the American Revolution. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this, there's a great video series called The War That Made America. This was done by PBS about 15, 20 years ago. The first episode, A Country Between, focuses very much on this beginning part of the war in 1754-55 and George Washington's role in all of that. This has been Learn with Mr. Lewis. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Leave any comments you have below. We'll see you. Do you want to see some more of Mr. Lewis? Of course you do. You're addicted. There's a great video here, another great video here, and you can subscribe right here. Do you want to see some more of Mr. Lewis? Of course you do. You're addicted.